The 2020 census is coming. Make sure The 2020 census is coming. Make sure everyone gets counted.
So I can count everyone in my house?
Everyone who lives in your house counts for $3,000 in city services.
What about Meowly Cyrus?
Unfortunately not.
Does my baby count as a person?
Yes, your baby does.
Fergalicious is like our baby.
Aww, but no.
How about my crazy Uncle Herbert visiting from Germany? That's getting old.
Sorry.
My grandfather lives with us. Should we count him?
Yes, you do.
A bun in the oven?
Maybe in 9 months.
My best friend?
No.
He's here every day.
Yeah, but no.
What about this baby?
If he lives with you.
Dasher?
This got weird. Let's recap. All living, breathing humans residing full-time in your home count. So make sure you count them.
Mountain. Welcome to this beautiful space, and you all just sound absolutely incredible in here. How about one more round of applause for these students? And they are under the direction of Miss Tanya Bamey, so thank you so much, Tanya, for having your students out here with us this morning. Best way to start the day with all of you. Well, before we proceed, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Laura Doyle, senior art student here at the Smart Center.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Laura. Another thank you to you, Ms. Bamey. I know your students need to get back to class, so we'll send you on back across the parking lot there to the main building. Thank you so much. And as they exit, can we also give a very big round of applause to our incredible jazz band that was playing this morning when you walked in? Just all kinds of wonderful sounds to fill the space this morning, and you'll get to hear a little bit more from them here after our program this morning. Well, I'm Danielle Airy, and I am the district's Chief Communications Officer. It's my pleasure to once again welcome you here this morning on this little bit of a soggy morning that we have to start things off, but I hear it's good luck if it rains on your ribbon cutting day, kind of like good luck if it rains on your wedding day, right? We're going to hope so. That's what we're going to go with this morning. Well, it really is just such an exciting morning, and you know, it's been a long journey to get here, but like all good things, very much worth the wait. We have a number of special guests who have also joined us this morning. I'm going to take a moment to recognize each and every one of them, and I typically begin with the elected officials that we have in the room that have joined us, but today I think I'm going to begin with our true guests of honor. Those are the students that are using this space. So to all of our students, all of you, and I wish I could go around and get you all by name, but you can see they're all just crowded around in here, and having them get to be here and to be a part of this truly incredible moment, it warms my heart to have you all here, so thank you. And then of course, we are so pleased to have our three teachers that are here joining us. I'm sure you're all huddled. I see one of them, Miss Katie Haas, who is here. Also, Mr. Frank Eager. I saw Mr. Eager. I believe we have Mr. Matus Vishnevsky. Is he here? I saw him crowded in as well, up at the top. Just like the photography teacher to have the space with the best view from the top up there, right? That is so fitting. Well, I know we have a number of other special guests that are here with us this morning. We have Jennifer Stein representing the mayor's office and the city manager's office. Thank you for being here, Mrs. Stein. We are also so pleased to have City of Peoria Councilmember John Edwards here with us. Thank you for being here. Also, City of Peoria Councilmember Vicki Hunt has also joined us this morning. Peoria Unified Governing Board President, Mr. David Sandoval. Our Governing Board Clerk, Mrs. Corey Underhill. Governing Board Member, Mrs. Monica Ceja Martinez is here. And our two other Governing Board members, Ms. Doan and Mrs. Pingarelli, they were unable to be here, but they do certainly send their regards today. Our superintendent has joined us. You'll get to hear from her in a little bit, Mrs. Linda Pallas Thompson. Our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Jason Reynolds. And our district leadership team, I think I saw almost all of them here with us. If you all would please stand so that we can recognize you as well, our district leaders. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to call out in particular Mr. Sean Duguid, of course, who had inherited this project but led it to completion this year. So thank you, Mr. Duguid. We have a few more honored guests that I want to take a moment to recognize. They are forever part of our Peoria Unified family, so we are just so pleased to have former governing board members with us, Ms. Julia Smock, Mrs. Kathy Connect, and our former superintendent, Dr. Denton Santorelli. I want to note, I believe I also saw Mrs. Mary Lynn McCord come in, and of course, she's sitting right here in the front, wife of former governing board member, Mr. Joe McCord. And I believe it's just so fitting that she could join us this morning. I know many of us remember fondly Mr. McCord, and he used to not only serve on our board, but also come and teach in this space where he was known affectionately as Professor Joe. And so it's wonderful to have you here, Mrs. McCord. Thank you for joining us this morning. Well, I know many of the guests, when you signed in to join us for this event, you shared such fond memories of this space and what it was, and we're just so looking forward to this next chapter and what it has truly become. I believe there are just many that remember, of course, the Challenger space shuttle and that fateful day when it broke apart in the midst of its flight, killing all 7 of those crew members that were on board. This building opened in 1996 and became really a hub of the community here in North Peoria, serving as both a museum and an activity center, really all centered around human flight. And you can see much of that here still today that we have preserved and to become really a work of art that will continue on into the future. Of course, the piece all around you by internationally acclaimed NASA artist Robert McCall, and I know there are even many in the room that remember this installation going in and remember that fondly. It's really fitting that we're surrounded by this piece of art and that we're transitioning from what it was as a center of flight into what it is now going to become, and kind of this new mission and this next frontier that this space will have as a place of art and innovation. So we're just so pleased that you could all be here with us today. Before we proceed any further in our program, it's my honor to welcome up our governing board president, who I know shares some remarks from you on behalf of the board. Please welcome President David Sandoval.
Thank you. Good morning. If I could, please, can I get one more round of applause for these wonderful students, teachers, and staff, and admin that are here? Thank you for that. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, as we honor the past and celebrate the future. The Peoria Unified School District is steadfast in its commitment to ensuring a thriving community and a society of great character. This is realized through nurturing the creativity of our youth, promoting innovation and fostering learning and work environments that are inspiring, safe, and supportive. The development of the PUSD Smart Center is a testament to this very intentional mindset and the district's commitment to student success through the arts. I would like to thank those who came before us that brought this original building to life, especially fellow board member Mrs. Julia Spock, who served our district from the inception of this building to its completion. She shared with me the involvement of Peoria Unified students, the design and marketing of the center, and the many meetings with Paul Winslow, the original architect, and artist Robert McCall. Many of such fond memories of this space and the number of students who were impacted by this building is a list that is infinitely long. I am beyond thrilled that through inclusive, diligent, and solutions-oriented conversations, our board was able to preserve this space and the artwork you see surrounding us this morning. I'm also proud that learning and innovation will continue here. I want to thank you for joining us in continuing the mission of preparing every student for academic excellence and a successful future as a responsible citizen who actively contributes to society, the community, and the workforce. I'm looking forward to what's next as we embark upon this new vision. Thank you to the team who worked tirelessly to make this vision a reality, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval, and thank you again to our entire governing board for your commitment to this project, for your support, and certainly for your collective vision to bring us where we are today. Thank you. Well, at this time, I'd like to invite Monica Yellen, Community Outreach Liaison, and she is here representing Congresswoman Lesko's office to present a proclamation on behalf of the Congresswoman, and she's going to present that to our governing board. So if I could invite the three of you up as well, and we'll make sure that we get that presented to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us today. It is an honor to be here, and Congresswoman Debbie Lesko sends her regards. I would like to recognize this special occasion as we celebrate the grand opening of the Smart Center right here in Peoria. This is such an exciting day for you, your students, and the Peoria community. Please know that I want to work together with you and others to make Arizona even better. To that end, if my office can ever help you navigate federal regulation, work with federal agencies, or if you would like to discuss areas that need improvement, I sincerely hope you will reach out to me or my office. We are here for you, Congresswoman Debbie Lesko.
Thank you so much, Monica, and thank you very much to the Congresswoman as well. Appreciate you being here. Well, there are a few others that we want to take a quick moment to recognize, and really the ones that we owe, I think, a deep debt of gratitude for doing the real work here of bringing this space from what it was to what it is today. There's a number of them who really do shy away from the spotlight, so of course I'm going to try my best to recognize and embarrass them as much as possible this morning, just to really make sure they get the credit that they so deeply deserve. The first is the team here at Sunrise Mountain. Our leadership team, Mr. Vance Sedka, principal, Mr. Clay, as the principal, excuse me, Mr. Clay Carpenter, Mrs. Christine Gutierrez, and Mrs. Charisse Moore, the assistant principals, for their dedication and commitment to this project. I think they are hiding somewhere in the background, as always, but a big thank you to Sunrise Mountain. We so appreciate their flexibility, all the hard work they put in, and really to be gifted with this building, I think 7 months early, so ahead of schedule. That's worth mentioning as well. So that took an awful lot of flexibility, but of course they made it happen, and so we really do appreciate them greatly. And then to the one really with the vision, who showed up to Mrs. Pallas Thompson and said, you know, I have this idea, for which we were all hugely excited. Most times when he says that, we're run. But of course, that is none other than our arts education director who really had the spark and the vision for all of this. That's Mr. Robert Panzer. Our facilities and maintenance team, and they truly are incredible. Our director, Mr. Chris Deeg. And our construction services manager, Mr. Vaughn McLean. Where's Mr. McLean? Thank you. And anyone that's worked with Vaughn knows when he takes on a project, it really becomes like his baby, and he is just paying such careful attention to detail, to every little nook and cranny, and I know he did that with this space as well. So thank you so much, Vaughn, for all your hard work here. I want to also thank the team, the architect team and the construction team that worked on this project as well. I know we have representation here from Orcutt Winslow, Michael Sumberg, and Tim Linko. Thank you very much. And I'd also
right, you ready? No? You got it?
We all get in different ways.
Yeah. Are you good? All right, here we go. Good? Jude? All right. Good evening. I'd like to convene our public session, and we'd like to start with a moment of silence. Ms. Underhill, would you lead us in the pledge? This moment of silence, I would like to recognize and honor, one of our own from Cheyenne Elementary who we lost recently. Thank you.
Of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5.1, address agenda and consider adoption or recommend changes. Board members?
I do have, I would like to move 10.3 up to 10.1 or whatever, as high as we can get it.
I'll second that. Kim, do you need a sec on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Verify we're moving 10.3 policy GCQ,
Yes, please.
and we'll shift everything.
Thank you so much.
You good, Kim?
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along to 6.1, staff recognitions.
Nothing.
Derek? No? Miss Linda Pellis-Thompson?
Well, thank you, Mr. Sandoval. On Monday, we held the ribbon cutting for the new Smart School. I was joined by former PUSD Superintendent Dr. Santarelli, along with Dr. Jason Reynolds. So we celebrated past, present, and future. Many people were there who were part of the original Challenger group. So that was very exciting. And then on Monday, Cheyenne Elementary School received a visit from the Arizona Cardinals. That's part of the Fuel Up to Play program, the 60 program. Teacher Erin Greener was awarded a $10,000 grant for her school, and students were able to participate in drills the Cardinals used to train. And then congratulations to Centennial Spirit Line as they head to nationals after winning the state competition last weekend. And that's what I have.
Very good. Thank you for that. Moving on to board comments. Ms. Stone?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Ms. Underhill?
I don't have anything tonight either. Thank you.
Ms. Pingarelli?
I'm good.
Okay. A couple of things. So this week, as we, kind of exit our basketball season, I, had the opportunity to attend a couple of our games between Peoria High School and Cactus, and then shot over to Ironwood and saw that game against Kellis. But I think beyond the sport itself, at both sides, it continues to inspire me how the competing teams will help one another up, and just how the coaches truly take a leadership role in creating great character and certainly discipline and positive habits within all of our student athletes. So just congratulations to those teams who are in the position to make it to the playoffs, and and again, a shout out to those coaches, teachers, and staff that inspire our students every day. Thank you. Okay, 6.3, superintendent comments. Ms. Pallas-Thompson, you good? Okay.
No, we're good right now.
Okay. Okay, 7.1, public comment. Request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. I do have a sample or a decent stack of green slips here, just to kind of ground public comment. Each individual has 3 minutes to speak on behalf of the subject of your choice. I just ask that we respect that time limit to allow others to speak. Public comment is typically runs for about 30 minutes. So even more important that each individual certainly maintains, their time within those 3 minutes. So with that said, we'll begin with looks like Blanca Detmar.
If this was true, why would you take away their amazing principal, Dr. Sorensen? If our children truly came first, why force their fearless leader who looks out for them, puts their interests first, takes the time to know them, and challenges them to be better and to have character, to resign? These children are our future. If we don't have someone like Dr. Sorensen to lead them, to love them, to guide them, and protect them, then what happens to them? As a product of the Peoria Unified School District, and now as a parent, I have lost the pride that I've always had in this district. The way that this district has handled the situation has been frustrating. Why has there been no communication with parents, with students? Why have our children and their educators been told to stay quiet on this matter? If there is no justice for Dr. Sorensen, as sad as this makes me, we will fight you tooth and nail on this override. As much as it's going to hurt our children, it's no different than what you've already done to them by taking away their leader. Why should we listen to you when you haven't taken the time to listen to us? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ms. Pallas-Thompson, if what I heard in that, if we can just make sure that we take a look at our process and protocol in how we communicate, to not only our sites but our community in cases like this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Charlotte Pottle. Did I pronounce that right? Thank you.
I have to echo the same words that Mrs. Detmar did also too. She kind of put it in great terms for us. And as somebody who has never had Facebook until this has started, because I don't want Facebook, I believe that that's the purpose and the justice of Facebook is to be able to help Dr. Sorensen out in this. Now, the fact of the matter is that what disturbs me the most is the communication and the lack of to our children. To have our student body president reach out several times to a board member and get zilch, my email was not even answered, and so it just wasn't important to you guys. But it's important to us. And I'm gonna say there's a couple other principals that I think really highly of that are in the district, but to finally get Dr. Sorensen in our program. And maybe you don't have children at Centennial, and it's not important to you. It's important to us. But you represent us. You are our voice, and you're not representing us well. Why will we not listen to our students? Forget about me as a parent. Why? Because they're young and know nothing? What kind of example, what kind of communication skills are we teaching them? Absolutely none. We're telling them how to feel, what they should be happy about, what they shouldn't be happy about, and, let's just do it all public media. Let's just send it on the public media and tell people how we like them and don't like them, because nobody else is listening to us. We are not fostering good communication skills. Communication is what makes this world go around. And how do I know how you feel about me? And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with me if I can't talk to you face to face. Especially in a concern like this, to have a couple of our students, young students, much younger than all of us, want to address and approach a board member just to get some feedback, just to be heard. That's all we all want, is just to be heard. I think that you guys owe it to the students. You do have power. You like throwing the power around. We've given you that power. We voted you in there. But at the same time, there needs to be respect across the board also, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, I have Daniel Bambulas.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Bambulas, and I'm following in line with the last two speakers, predominantly in the same guidelines. I'm a strong supporter and volunteer for Peoria Unified School District. We spent many nights volunteering our time that we don't necessarily have or can't even afford to lose, to help out in a district, to better our schools, to create an environment that our children want to be in, that are going to make our children successful for the future so they could run this country the way that it should be run, and that we could all enjoy the fruits of our labors as they succeed through life. I find it a disgrace the way that the Peoria Unified School District and the board has been represented this situation here. You have taken an administrator who has worked tireless hours from sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night is at that school, making an atmosphere, creating an atmosphere in which these kids will be successful, especially in the post-secondary education system. You have forced an administrator to resign, in my belief. And now we're paying an administrator to be out of work for the remainder of the school year, out of dollars that we cannot afford to lose. So we have enough money in our budget to pay somebody that we don't need. Our schools are good enough that we can lose an administrator that's going to push and drive for success for our students. And at the end of the day, you guys act like this is no big deal. I've sent countless emails. I've sent countless phone calls. The emails that I have gotten back have been generic emails. Each one of them states that they cannot give me any information because it's a confidential situation, and I never asked one time for any confidential information. I asked you guys, as the Board of Peoria, to stand with the community that elected you, to help support us because you are our voice when it comes to these issues. We stood behind you. We gave you guys the elected votes that you needed in order to hold these positions because we believed in you. We believed that you would represent us. We believed that you guys would be our voice of reason. Now, there's many people in this room that have also volunteered those countless hours because we need that assistance in our community. These schools will not succeed unless people are there giving their free time to see to it that our children will be successful. By doing things of this, you guys are pushing us away. You're making us not want to go and help out. You're ruining our education systems and the future of our children. Again, you ask us to support you guys for your elected positions. You also ask us to support you guys for our Peoria school bond. And like the other speaker said, that is detrimental to the success of our students, but we will fight you tooth and nail. If you do not support us, we do not support you. If you can have administrators like Dr. Sorensen on paid leave, then you don't need additional monies. Find the money out of your pockets to fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Elena Bamboulas.
Bill is one of the best administrators I have ever had the privilege of working with. He is a genuinely good man who cares deeply for his students and his staff and is always there to give support when needed. My husband and I have a freshman daughter that attends CEHS, and we are also teachers in a neighboring district. We have been extremely impressed with Dr. Sorensen's leadership, character, and support of students and staff. We think he is being targeted unjustly and hope the district will do the right thing and reinstate him in his rightful place as principal at CEHS. The current and future students of Centennial deserve a strong, caring, and thoughtful leader. Dr. Sorensen is that person. He has made a positive impact on Centennial and should have the opportunity to continue his work there. I have never seen such an active, devoted administrator. My daughter's experience at Centennial and her forever memories will forever be positively influenced by his presence. Centennial and PUSD need him. Never before has there been someone as worthy of being our principal as this man. He cares about this community, and he cares about the kids at Centennial. Those are just a few comments that have been made regarding Dr. Sorensen. It is extremely clear how this community feels about Dr. William Sorensen, grateful principal at Centennial, as he always referred to himself as. As grateful as he was to be principal, we were even more grateful to have him at Centennial. It's not hard to see that in him or in the community. Had you just even listened or even watched, had you spent one day at that school, you would have seen it, and it would have been clear as day how important he is at that campus and how much of an impact he has made to not only us as parents, the students, the whole community has benefited from him. It's devastating for the families who trusted in PUSD and all of the students who love, trust, and miss their principal, many of whom I know are watching right now because they can't be here. This is so far from being right. Just look at the people in this room. He told me one time that he wanted to know the names of all of the students, every single student at that school, and he wanted to be the most available principal that ever existed. And he is fully capable of doing that. And he has shown that over and over again. How can you not see how important he is to this community? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Corrine Haynes.
Mrs. Powles-Thompson, President Sandoval, members of the board. I recently took my mom to see a podiatrist, and in walked this young, cute doctor. And the first thing he said is, "I like your shirt." And I said, "Well, thank you." And I said, "Well, you know, you can order a shirt just like, or a shirt, and it goes and supports the Tunnel to Towers organization." And I explained to him what that organization did, and then his assistant walked in, and she looked at my shirt, and she said, "Well, is that like our flag?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It is, except for 13 stars. We now have 50 stars. And then she looked and she said, "Does Betsy Ross live in Phoenix?" And I went, "No." Explained to her that she lived during the American Revolution and that she has her house is now a museum in Philadelphia. So when the appointment was over and we left, my mom and I looked at each other and we said, "Oh my gosh, that was our first man on the street experience. You see these all the time on TV, but you don't believe it. But here were two very educated people, and we thought we weren't sure if the doctor even knew who Betsy Ross was. And so it does send a concern when it's right now, right here in your backyard, you're hearing these things. And then I couldn't help but wonder, as I listened to the President's State of the Union speech, if the younger generation even knew who he was speaking about when he referenced many American heroes. I am curious to know how much American history is being taught today in our elementary classrooms. I had the honor yesterday of judging at one of our schools for the students' patriotic speeches, and was really heartened by how enthusiastic those kids were in their speeches, but still am concerned by the overall lack of knowledge of our own American history. And I would be very interested in seeing how American history is integrated through all of our elementary grades here in this district. And if it isn't being integrated, why not? Because to me, there was nothing more eye-opening in that experience that we had at that doctor's office, and wondering just how prevalent is it. I'm also concerned about math. Another man-on-the-street incident was shared with me when a local business right here in our community was interviewing our high school student graduates and asked a math-related question pertinent to the job. How many eighths in an inch? Each of the three applicants interviewed could not answer the question. I've also heard from a concerned parent that we're still teaching Common Core math.
Ms. Haynes, thank you.
Okay.
Time's up. No, I appreciate it. But Ms. Pallas Thompson and team, if we can just follow up on those, certainly curriculum items, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Hal Borhauer.
There are other speakers in this group. They can go in front of me. I have a different issue.
No, sir. It looks like you are the
Okay.
final green slip.
All right. Good evening, President Sandoval, Superintendent Thompson, members of the board, cabinet. My name is Hal Borhauer, and I'm currently the co-chairman of the CTE Advisory Commission and a concerned citizen of Peoria. I'm here this evening to request the governing board schedule and hold as quickly as possible a review of board policy KHBR, advertising in schools. I'll be glad to present the board a copy of that policy if they'd like to see one. In the past year, I've become aware of some issues relating to this policy that I believe are interpreted incorrectly as they relate to clubs and academic organizations. Mr. Rick Johnson was authorized to start PSBN. The board considered them an academic organization. The initial funding was $50,000 to start that program from the district, and they were allowed to use any corporate advertising and donations to grow the program, and it successfully grew to all 7 high schools. Last year, the control of the advertising revenue from PSBN, broadcast at Liberty, was transferred to the district PR department. As a commission member, I remained hopeful that this was a positive move for greater success. The result appears to be all PSBN advertising income at Liberty has stopped, and we've lost the instructor. In my opinion, the district having the PR department take over PSBN academic organization fundings violates the last section of the policy KHBR. A second issue has recently arisen over club funding, raising donations and how those funds are expended. While the policy allows for a funding split between the district and booster clubs, an actual split amount has never been established, and I believe the board must also clarify this portion of the policy. The installation of a video scoreboard at Centennial Athletic Field has caused another challenge you must resolve. After the installation of the video board, a meeting was held between the football, cheer, and band booster groups with a representative of the scoreboard manufacturer to learn about advertising opportunities. This meeting caused a disruption at the school that I believe was caused by the district. School booster groups have historically been free to post banners, sideline, gym advertisements on athletic facilities, and spend those funds promoting the program they support. Video board at Centennial is only the beginning. Sunrise Mountain has a video board on their scorers table in their gym. That could generate advertising revenue. Others are sure to come. Video scoreboards are the future, and potential advertising revenue is available with them. You must understand, however, that booster groups will not support advertising income that filters to the school or to the district. If there's even a perceived chance that funds raised by the booster group will be touched by the district, there will be no funds raised. These groups raise these funds to support their students and their school. Remember, they're separate 501c3 charities. Any inkling the district is involved with will absolutely kill any fundraising they may have the ability to raise. Right now, booster groups need to start their fundraising for fall sports. They need clarification so they can proceed and that the district won't be wanting to touch their funds. Please schedule a study session as soon as possible, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrar. Dan.
3 minutes is hard, guys.
Ms. Pallas Thompson, is that, can we get that in Friday report, that particular policy, so we can review it?
You can put that on as a future
Yep.
agenda
Yeah,
item.
will do.
Yeah, under
Thank you.
Friday report.
Any, I guess very quickly, what I would like to say, I mean, the public comment agenda line item is important, to us as a board as well as the district. I know there was a statement made that, our perceived lack of interest in listening to the voices of all our stakeholders, which includes our students, is I apologize, for you feeling in that manner, because, our students, teachers, staff, all stakeholders are very critical to making global and holistic decisions on behalf of the district. That said, there are certainly certain decisions that, this decision we do not take lightly. And there are decisions that, when, they are tied to people or, our associates, confidentially is of the utmost importance. However, that said, it is loud and clear from the communications perspective that is absolutely an opportunity that I think we certainly have, not only as a district, but as individuals who are here to be your voice and represent you, on this board. But I do appreciate everyone's certainly willingness to speak, on behalf of this subject and use this platform to make sure that we are held accountable and that your voice is being heard. So thank you for that. At this point, we will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on that agenda that we need to pull?
Hello, Mr. Sandoval, or President Sandoval.
Yes.
If I may, pull travel requests.
Sure.
8.4.
8.4, please. Any other items, board members, that need to be pulled from the consent agenda? I need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 8.4 travel requests.
We approve the consent agenda minus 8.4. I will second.
We have a motion by Ms. Stone to approve the consent agenda minus 8.4 travel requests and a second by Ms. Pingarelli.
Kim, I'll need to do a voice vote.
Yes, let's do one. Can we do voice vote?
Yes.
Call them.
Yep, those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Nay? Nope. Passes 5-0. Ms. Seah, travel requests. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I can hear all of you very clear with no echo, so kudos. Thank you so much for working on that. To address the travel request, this is something that the board has been continuously looking at to see the funds that we are sending our staff are aligned to our strategic pillars as well as added value. There are a couple ones that are repeats just based on last year, and specifically Peoria High School I wanted to address. I am a full supporter of professional development, and that's one way we can train and attract our staff to prepare to support our students. However, I'm still looking at this information. Missing is the measurable outcomes. So I did speak to Dr. Reynolds and our superintendent, Linda Pellis-Thompson. I want to help understand what is different from them going last year to this year in Peoria High School.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
Yes.
So this is Dr. Reynolds, Deputy Superintendent. When we are talking about with Peoria High School, you're referring to the BAR program?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So the last visit that they made was actually to a school that had the BAR program. That was an initial trip with a leadership team to see the program and get an understanding of whether or not that program would be a good fit for Peoria High School. This trip, so they brought that information back. They have their leadership team, and they decided that they wanted some more information. They wanted to be able to understand the program, have an in-depth understanding of what that is, because they're very interested now in bringing that to Peoria High School. So this leadership team will be trained in the BAR program, and then once that training takes place in a trainer of trainer models, they will bring that back to work to implement at Peoria High School.
I appreciate that additional background, and I would question what does the leadership team consider a good fit, and how are they going to measure those outcomes? What identifiers are they looking at their specific high school that they're going to move the dial align to our strategic plan?
Yeah, so this program deals with both academic success. It deals with some of the behavior successes that they'll see. So they will use both academic data, they'll use some of their student behavior data to determine whether or not the program is successful. After our conversation, I have worked with Mr. Bauer to continue to look at what measures that they will be using to ensure that it's successful and we know that it is working, so that we don't continue to do something that's not having an impact.
Okay. It's great to know that you're going to continue to have that conversation. I would caution the board to continue to look at how we're spending that money, specifically if it is addressing the behavior truancy, that it be very specific and measurable. So I would like to see example from my perspective as a board member to say we are going to reduce tardiness, or even better, address the discipline and reduce out-of-school suspensions by 3%, 5%, 10%. What is an attainable goal, and what is a stretch goal that as a result of this training is going to move that dial?
And one further piece, Mrs. Ceja Martinez, is that we are continuing to explore for the 2020-21 school year an addition to our process, so that those measurable outcomes become part of that process and are also added, so that we have that section that talks about which perspective from our strategic plan that this will impact, but also then adding in what we want to get out of it, what will be the measurable goal. So that will be something that you will see for the 2021 school year.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So in this situation for me, I will consider moving forward, but I highly recommend, especially in the financial conditions that we have to consider, that going forward, any travel requests have those measurable outcomes, even though we haven't solidified the process, that every administrator take a look at how that is going to drive positive outcomes on their site. And I'm prepared to continue to pull travel requests and ensure that we're aligning those outcomes aligned to student success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ann Martinez. Do we have a motion to approve the travel request?
I move that we approve the travel request.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by Ms. Doan to approve 9.1 travel requests. Please cast your votes.
And for me, Mr. President Sandoval, I'll do a voice vote as an aye.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to pause for a second, and this is my fault. Typically, before we get into the meat of the agenda and after public comment, we do allow those individuals who would like to move on to dinner and time with family to feel free to do so. You're certainly more than welcome to stay. We'd love to have you. But
Mr. President, can I make a motion that we go back to the public comment? There's several committee members in the audience that have filled out the green cards, but we're unaware of the process of getting them to the front desk and do not get a chance to speak.
I don't know how much time was spent. Yes. So I don't know how much time was spent in public comment. I know we typically have it around 30 minutes. If we have a moment, I don't mind listening to further public comment.
Is there anybody that has a card that would like to?
Allowable? Is that appropriate?
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Yes.
I don't believe that's allowable at this point. At the end of the meeting, are you able to address, and let me check with my team here. Are you able to address items at the end of the meeting that were addressed? That's correct?
Yes, we do have an item at the
members
end of
can.
the meeting that would allow the governing board to readdress issues. We can also find out how much time we have left in that.
30 minutes. Okay, perfect. Is that?
Minutes of public speaking. If you guys allow 30 minutes, I think that you owe the committee justice by doing this.
And I think we can do that right at the end.
So it sounds like we can bring it back at the end. Is that amenable to?
It was an agenda item right there.
Very clear. Kind of led us to the situation. So.
We'll allow.
Okay, and at this point, we're not debating that because it's not part of the issue here. We have closed it.
So, but as a compromise, and I definitely want to hear from others, we can move it to the end of the agenda and allow for public speak at that point. Okay?
Moving to 10.3 now.
Is this the complete
10.1 now.
list of green
That's all
slips?
we have.
Moving to 10.3.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, going on to our agenda items. We did move the GCQC to the top, so we can go ahead and start there. So we will hear from Dr. Carter Davidson.
President Sandoval, members of the board, community members, tonight's conversation focuses on policy GCQC. That's a resignation of professional staff members. This is one governing board, as you know, we were asked to bring back with some recommended changes that were based on a few things. Those things that I have highlighted for you as a draft in yellow our definition of what liquidated damages is. We also put in a bullet point about internal or external promotion, and for those of you that have been on the board, you've seen that item before. Also, further down in that document, we did add a little bit of additional time, a time frame into there that also demonstrating a sliding scale. I think we had talked about that in our last meeting, what that might look like on behalf of our certificated employees. So those are the things I bring back to you tonight for conversation. If certainly you liked these or any recommended changes that you would like me to make, I could bring that back as a second read. We could use this as a first read tonight, or simply we could keep our policy as is. So I think we have it listed as a conversation piece as well as an agenda item for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Stone, any comment?
Well, I would like to keep the policy as is, because what good is a contract if you're only holding one side really responsible? The district is responsible. This is why we give contracts, is to assure our teachers of their position, of their place, and in any entity where a contract is signed, both sides are liable for the results of their signature. For signing the contract, there are consequences to both sides. We can't go around, I mean, as a district, we don't go around, just breaking contracts. That can't be done. It's illegal. And it is cause for censure to our professionals when they do break a contract, not by us, but by the ADE. So I believe that our teachers are professionals. They know how to handle these things. They know that signing their name on a contract is binding. I think that we're dismissing our teachers in a way that is not. I mean, they are professionals. They know what's happening with these things. They know when they sign, and I don't want to belittle that understanding between us and our teachers. We expect them to live up to professional standards once they've signed a contract. They expect us to live up to professional standards when we've signed the contract. I don't see weakening the GCQC as being as promoting that professionalism and as being good for the students, because it promotes a less professional air, and it promotes in the one instance, if people leave, it's very unclear how, they could just leave because of something they consider to be a better job in a different district, and there's no consequence, and our kids are the ones left in the lurch because there's no teacher there. So I think we've messed with this long enough. I want to leave it where it is, where we have it now. I believe it's fair. It causes consequences to us if we break it. It causes consequences to our employees if they break it. That's fair. That's equitable.
Thank you. Ms. Saya Martinez, I think you're still on.
I am. Thank you for that.
Yep.
I appreciate this conversation. Respect everybody's decision. Mine hasn't changed. I also think about, we don't have the statistics and data to support if we have a teacher that's in a position where she's that miserable or that ineffective to write out their contract just to serve the purpose of the contract, if that's in good, the best position for our children. So at that point, I haven't changed my mind, and I'll just stand there.
Thank you for that. Ms. Underhill?
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for the effort that you put into revising this policy. I can tell that you listened and heard to, some of the suggestions that were made, because I felt like, as you know, from the beginning, that the policy was really like trying to be all-inclusive of all situations, and all situations are not the same. I do feel like that the wording of the policy is much less, it doesn't sound punitive as it once had to me. It actually, it's much more understandable, and the leeway that it gives as far as the timing and also the ability of individuals to give notice and to be able to, to get a waiver on a case-by-case basis, I think is very helpful. That said, I have to say that, I don't know that having liquidated damages is necessarily effective at all. But if we are to keep a contract or a policy in regard to that, I do think that this policy is much better crafted to kind of look at those different scenarios that happen in these situations. So that's where I stand on that one.
Thank you for that. Ms. Pingarelli?
Well, let's see. I'll start at the first paragraph that has been changed. It says that it is not a penalty. That's the new language. Dr. Davidson, the Department of Education, still feels breaking a contract is unprofessional behavior?
I believe that is true, Ms. Pingarelli. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have a problem. I mean, it technically is a penalty in my view. So I have an issue with leaving that in. Second issue is the second paragraph, or the one for internal and external advancement. I've expressed my concern before. I only care about the teachers, the students within this district, not other districts. So if somebody is leaving for an external advancement, I believe the liquidated damages should be in there. If they're being advanced here within our district, I have no issue with waiving the liquidated damages. And that is, I believe that is fair. The last one is the 3 weeks notice. So you have in there with 3 weeks notice, if you can find a replacement that, and that's any point throughout the year.
Currently, there is no restriction on a timeline or a calendar at that point.
Well, I think once the year starts and once the students have their teacher, I believe that you can't, I believe there will be some damage. So even if you do find a different teacher, it is going to, there is potential damage with some students. So I don't agree with that paragraph. And then I just wanted for the timeline, contracts are going to be issued when?
Our hope, Ms. Pingarelli, and that is along with an agenda item in the near future here tonight, but our hope would be by March 13th.
Okay, I just want to kind of go through the date, because you're giving when it's kind of a scaled for the liquidated damages. So there's 10 days after the contract is signed, is that correct? Or do they have 10 days to sign the contract?
They'll have, yes, ma'am. So for the next school year, they would have 15 days from issuance to return their contract.
Okay. And then for no liquidated damages, can you go through the dates with me on that one?
Sure. The last part that we put in there, Ms. Pingarelli, was that if you're under a current contract to start the school year, between June 1st and April 1st, if you were to break your contract, you would have full liquidated damages.
Mm-hmm.
If it were towards the end of the school year, roughly April 2nd is what we have here through May 30th, then we would assess 1/2 of those applicable liquidated damages. The portion that follows would be, for an example, as I believe where you are right now, talking about if we were to issue contracts for next school year.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to break their contract between April 1 and May 30th for the next school year, there would not be an assessment of liquidated damages. We thought that would still give our principals ample time to find possible employees to fill those spots.
I still agree with the policy as is. The only thing that I would give slightly in on would be giving a waiver after the initial signing, where it's going to be a slight scale, but I think once you get into that point, I think the policy does what it's supposed to do, and it's only affected about 20 teachers, is that correct, or 20 employees this year?
So currently, I didn't bring that particular
Okay.
data set, and it changes every board meeting, right?
Right.
Last year, we had 29 individuals that had liquidated damages assessed.
Okay.
And years prior, anywhere from 20 to 23 would be that range.
All right. I like the policy as is, but thank you very much for your hard work on it.
Certainly.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. D, for the really listening and then putting on paper some of the items that we felt would allow this policy to be. Hey, let me take a quick step back. So this policy has been with the district for many years, and it's been one of the ones that I pulled when I first became a governing board member because I felt it needed adapting because the way it read, was, too punitive for me. One of the things that we've always talked about is creating safe, supportive, inspiring environments, not just for our students, but our teachers and staff as well. And that said, one of the things that we were able to do, right, is, reduce the damages by $1,000 across the board, which is great. But there's no doubt, I think it still needs, a little adaptation to ensure that it is a policy that protects the classroom, not one that, makes anyone feel, that they're being held hostage, for lack of a better term, and that might be a little extreme. But what I do like about these changes, but I do have comment on one of them on the external advancement, but I know we've heard comment, and we've heard it this evening as well, that an individual who is not in the right mindset, to be an associate with any organization, but especially ours when we're dealing with kids, that is, detrimental to the classroom. So, but what I do like is that this particular policy, the rewrite or the draft that we're looking at, excuse me, allows for that flexibility, meaning the 3-week notice, and if there's an individual available to fill that seat, those will be waived. So another item that, I feel very strongly about is, as our teachers are required to sign their contract by a certain day for the subsequent year, having some flexibility there as well. I think we need to hang our hat, as an organization on the fact that, we create an environment that, again, is safe, supportive, and inspiring, trust, right? That's what keeps our associates here, more so than, a pay or a penalty. So that said, I like its flexibility. I think it's less punitive, to Ms. Underhill's point. I do think, when you take a look at the internal or external advancement, I do like that bullet, but on the external advancement, I'm wondering, if there's, I don't know, I don't want to call it a caveat or just a more detail there in and around, for an associate who's been here for, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? And the reason I say that is, there's no doubt there's an investment when we bring in a new associate teacher, staff, or admin, right? There's an investment there. And, but I'm always a proponent of individuals wanting to grow and professionally and individually. And if that growth results in, their ability to advance their career, whether it be here internally within the district or externally, I think we need to celebrate that. But, with the investment, maybe there's, somewhat of a clause just around the tenure of the associate for the external advancement clause. But overall, You know, I like the flexibility. I like how it reads from a supportive perspective. I am, aside from the external advancement, I mean, I'm in support of, you know, certainly of these changes, without question. So, with that said, any additional comment?
So
Gotcha.
you're planning to bring it back?
Yeah, I think, I mean, what I want to do is make sure that you leave with all the information that you need to be successful, right? And, you know, I know there is some flexibility on the advancement, Ms. Pingarelli. I do like, again, everything else, but I think if we had some, you know, details in and around the external advancement regarding a, you know, a longer-term associate, you know, I think maybe that would be something that we would consider. But that would be one of my recommended changes, but I want to make sure that everyone else's recommendations are addressed as well. So do you have a clear understanding of what those are, aside from what's sitting in front of us?
I just have a question. So the item on the agenda is listed as action and discussion. So are we able to move forward with an action to bring this back for a second read? Is that what we are needing to do at this point, or?
Ms. Underhill and President Sandoval, in experiences like this in the past, certainly you could make a recommendation to ask me to make the changes per your comments and bring it back as a second read, if that was at the board's pleasure, right? That would be a motion. You could also simply say, take my feedback and bring it back again as an agenda item, and we would have this same conversation, and you could, at that point, have a similar motion made if you wanted to carry it forward or not.
Then, in that case, I move that we move forward on bringing this back as a second read. Oh, is there a green slip on this agenda item?
I don't have one. Is there? We do have a green slip tied to this particular line item.
Sorry.
So before the motion, let's allow Ms. Trina Berg to speak.
Thank you. Sorry, it was a late submission. President Sandoval, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. My name is Trina Berg. I'm president of the Peoria Education Association. I've made several comments to the board in the past that PEA has the stance of getting rid of the liquidated damages completely. We stand by that, that option. However, if we're going to not get rid of it, some of these changes are at least moving in the right direction. I appreciate the fact that we can choose to not come back if we have already signed it, but before the end of the current school year for the next school year. That's at least moving in the right direction. I also appreciate the fact that you're trying to scale back the liquidated damages, but I do have a question, why an April date? And if we're going to cut something in half or prorate it or something, why are we not maybe choosing semester? So if you work up until the first semester, after that it would be cut in half, since we've worked half the school year. Just a couple of my own thoughts on that. The internal promotion, if I'm understanding correctly, we wouldn't be breaking our contract if we got internally promoted anyway, so that wouldn't apply. For external, I mean, at this point, our district is not in a position to hire assistant principals, and if one of our teachers has put in the time and the education and is able to interview and get hired in another district as an actual assistant principal and not just a teacher on assignment, I think our district is not really in a great position to be charging liquidated damages for something. Honestly, I think we should work on our working conditions and trying to make our working conditions better for our teachers that are here and making them not want to leave. And yes, you're right, it's not affecting that huge number of teachers every year. But let's try and work on what we can do on campuses in our own district internally to improve working conditions that would at least make it possible for teachers to make it through the school year. I can tell you, having worked with teachers that were only here because they didn't want to pay $1,500, that is not what's in the best interest for students, to have that teacher next door who doesn't want to be here. they're not putting in the work, they're not putting in the time, and they're not building the relationships with the students that our students need to be successful. I would rather have a teacher
Time.
leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Davidson. So, Ms. Underhill?
So now I would like to move that we move forward of bringing policy GCQC back in its updated format as a second read.
And if there's a way to be inclusive of, some of Ms. Berg's comments, I think some of those were relevant. And I'm sure we can have an incremental discussion around that. I'll second that.
President Sandoval?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I believe that the way the motion reads, we either have to take this as recommended or take action on recommended changes. So at this point, I think we're going to have to table it if we're not willing to vote on the recommended changes or as it is presented.
Okay. So with that said, I move that we table this item. So Kim, with that said, if we table it, that still gives the opportunity for Dr. Davidson and team, we have to bring it back to discuss edits at that point?
Yes.
Is that, okay.
All right, second.
Thank you for that clarification. Everybody in? Ms. San Martinez, are you still on the line?
I am.
Okay. We are voting to table this item for a subsequent board meeting.
I will vote to an aye to table it, but I'm not going to change my position.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, Ms. Dell?
I would like to tender my apologies. I have an engagement I must attend, and for the informational and things I have been through, all that, so I understand, and I won't be missing anything of moment. So, see you later.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to presentation of the Peoria Unified School District's annual financial audit.
Okay, well, good
Mrs.
evening.
Myers.
Yes, good evening, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Pallas Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an overview of the fiscal year 2019 annual financial audit and comprehensive annual financial report, also known as a CAFR, for the Peoria Unified School District. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Dennis Osach, CPA, principal at Clifton Larson Allen, the CPA firm that conducted the fiscal year 2019 audit, and Mr. Michael Vaughn, CPA, the district's internal auditor. Mr. Osach will present an overview of the audit process and provide specific information related to the district's comprehensive annual financial report and single audit. Mr. Vaughn and I will provide Peoria Unified specific audit information, and we will review the Uniform System of Financial Records, also known as the USFR Compliance Questionnaire findings related to the fiscal year 2019 audit and steps the district is taking to address the findings. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Osach to join us for his portion of the presentation.
Thank you, President Sandoval, and thank you, members of the board.
My name is Dennis Osich, and I'm with Clifton Larson Allen. We performed the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019 for the Peoria Unified School District. So I am here today to basically just present the results of the audit and then answer any questions that you have. As the auditor for the school district, we report directly to the governing board. Obviously, we work closely with management in performing the audit, but ultimately we work for the governing board and we report to you. So that's what I'm here to do tonight. So as part of the audit, and what you have in your packet is we performed an audit of the comprehensive annual financial report. We also did an audit, it's called the single audit report, and there's 2 reports that are included in there. And then we also reported on compliance with the Uniform System of Financial Records, so that's required by the Auditor General. Basically, it's a 40-page questionnaire specifically related to compliance at the district, and so we perform testing in order to report on compliance with those, and Mr. Vaughn will present on that after I present on the audit itself. So specifically related to the comprehensive annual financial report, what is an audit? Really, what our job is to report on management's assertions and to give an opinion on the financial statements. And when we give an opinion, what that's doing is we're giving an opinion that the financial statements are reported in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And so when we do an audit, we're giving reasonable but not absolute assurance. And what that basically means is that when we perform an audit, we can't look at 100% of the transactions. But what we do is we look at samples, and we also look at material areas. And when we look at materiality, we use dollar thresholds, but we also look at what is important to the reader of the financial statements as well as to the public. So materiality may not necessarily be a dollar amount, but it also might be things that would be important to a reader of the financial statements and how they use those financial statements. And so again, we're giving reasonable assurance that those statements are reported in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And then also related to the audit, we'll have any type of findings or recommendations. So as we're performing the audit, we'll report on internal controls. So if there are areas where we feel there could be improvements to internal controls or efficiencies within the district, we'll report on those, as well as any type of recommendations related to compliance or controls over the federal programs, which would be included in the single audit report. So when we perform the audit, what do we look at? We really base on a risk-based approach. Every organization has risk, and when we say the word risk, it sounds like a scary thing, but there's always risks related to financial statements, and so every organization has a different risk. When we look at the financial statements, generally we look at revenue recognition as being a risk for most organizations, and then we also look at any type of changes in the organization. So if there was any significant changes, so a few years back, there was a change in the financial management system that was being used. So that automatically creates a risk. So we perform additional procedures in those areas that we identify as higher risk areas, which doesn't mean that we ignore some of the other areas. It just means that we may perform other basic procedures or other type of analytical procedures. And as we assess the risk, what we do is we assess risk at the planning stage of our audit, but we continue to assess risk throughout the audit engagement all the way through to conclusion. As we're performing procedures, we may find things that may identify that an area is higher risk of a misstatement, and so we may perform additional procedures in those areas. So when we apply the risk, we're basing it on the account balances and the programs that we're looking at so that we can render an opinion on the financial statements. And some of the things that we really consider in risk, we get those through inquiry with management, with governance. We get that through some of our observations that we do, some of the work that we've performed in the past, or areas that we've identified in the past that have been higher risk, as well as just some of the test work. As I mentioned, as we start doing test work, if we start to find some areas that, not necessarily that there were errors, but maybe that there are more complex areas than we had thought they would be, those generate higher risk as well. So we'll design our procedures that way. And then other factors. Other factors would be things outside of your organization. So if we know that there may be a reduction in a state's allocation of revenues, or if we know there's other external factors out there that might create risk, if we know that a district is going to be issuing bonds, and so obviously there are some risks that are related to that because you want to be able to present good financial statements so that you can get a better rating. So those are some of the things that we look at externally as well. So the reporting package that you have, you'll see there's communication to governance, which ultimately what I'm doing here today is presenting the results of the audit, but we also have written communication to governance as well. The comprehensive annual financial report, and that's the big document that you see. Those are the financial statements and the related notes to the financial statements, and that's what we actually give an opinion on. You'll have the single audit report and then the USFR compliance questionnaire. Oftentimes, we'll also issue a management letter. These are recommendations to management of internal control items where we don't feel it needs to be brought to the attention of governance, but areas where we feel there could be improvement or efficiencies. This year, we did not have a management letter that we issued. So on the comprehensive annual financial report, you'll see in there it's broken up into sections. The basic financial statements, we give an opinion on the basic financial statements. So those are your major funds in the financial statements, and then it's also the notes to the financial statements. You'll see following the notes to the financial statements are the combining and individual fund financial statements. So these are all the non-major funds. We give an in relation to opinion, and basically what that means is it means that as a whole, that those financial statements are fairly stated in comparison to the basic financial statements. And then on the required supplementary information, the statistical information and introductory section, we disclaim an opinion. So what that means is we don't give an opinion on that. Rather, that information is generally multi-year trend data that's presented, or in the case of the introductory section, it's the letter of transmittal that's written by management. And so those are areas that we read through for consistency with the financial statements, as well as to identify if there's anything that may be disclosed that we weren't aware of as part of the financial statements, but we don't give an opinion on that. So we did render an unmodified opinion, or what is a clean opinion, meaning that the financial statements, in our opinion, were in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The single audit is required for all entities that expend more than $750,000 in federal awards. And we provide an opinion on the district's compliance with the federal awarding agency's requirements. And then we report on internal controls over compliance, as well as we report on internal controls over the financial statements. And what that means is we don't give an opinion on internal controls, but rather if we had any type of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, we would report those. And then once the audit's completed, the single audit reporting package, which includes the financial statements, as well as the single audit reports, are transmitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. So just at a glance, the district spent $26.3 million in federal awards during the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019. And so there was two major federal programs that we looked at as part of the audit: the special education cluster, which had about $5.8 million in expenditures, and then the supporting effective instruction state grant, which was only about $848,000. All in all, the total federal awards that were tested was 25%, so we tested 25% of the total federal expenditures. As a low-risk entity, as auditors, we're only required to test at least 20%, so we met that coverage. So the results of the single audit, excuse me, we rendered an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on compliance. We had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over the financial statements, which is the Government Auditing Standards Report. And then we had one matter of noncompliance that was reported as a significant deficiency. This was over one of the federal grants. It was just related to time and effort. There was no matter of noncompliance, but one of the controls is that the time and effort certifications needs to be signed by a second reviewer to approve the time certifications. And we noted that there were two time certifications that were not signed. So before I hand it over to Mr. Vaughn, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions as it related to our audit.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Ms. Pangrilli? Yep. Ms. Sea Martinez?
Just one comment or just one question. Thank you again for bringing this information and sharing. When is the next audit planned for specifically the special ed that you currently reviewed?
You're talking about for the federal program?
Yes.
We don't know yet. Really, it depends on the level of federal expenditures that are spent. Although we had one significant deficiency that was reported related to that program, it does not make it a high-risk program. And so because it's not a high-risk program, it doesn't need to be tested the next 2 years. So it would be 3 years before it would actually have to be tested again. However, when we do our assessment, we still have to get coverage. And so each year when we do our assessment and we look at what are the high-risk and low-risk programs, if we come back and we don't have enough high-risk programs to test, we do have to select programs in order to get our coverage. And in this case, it would have to be at least 20% of the expenditures. So, that could be a program that could be selected in order to get the coverage.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that clarity.
Yeah, thank you for that. So when you take a look at I'm going to call it the assessment that you went through, the audit, right? What, overall, with, what you've seen, what, if this was an AZ merit test, what's our proficiency?
Well, I always tell people our grade is an unmodified opinion, but I'll go a little further than that. So you'll see in the governance communication that we had no material corrected misstatements. What that means is that when we do an audit, if we have any type of correcting journal entries, then we provide those to management for them to review and to record in the financial statements. And we didn't have any, so that's really good, especially considering the size of the organization. I will tell you, working with the business department, especially Michelle Myers and working with Michael Vaughn and their team, they're very focused and have very much attention to detail. So it's a very clean audit. Michael Vaughn's going to go over the USFR compliance. We have very few audits where there are no compliance findings. Really, the number of compliance findings that he's going to go over are minimal, related, especially to an organization this size. But I would say it's a very clean audit.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And we agree. I think Ms. Myers and Mr. Vaughn and team, are very diligent in their process. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you.
Before Michael joins us, I'd like to thank Dennis Osich again for his portion of the presentation. And as I've mentioned many times over the last 2 years, one of the 4 perspectives of the district's strategic plan is stewardship of community resources, and the annual financial audit and comprehensive annual financial report and uniform system of financial records compliance questionnaire are all part of that strategic perspective to solidify and adhere to effective policies, practices, and accountability for district resources. I would like to comment that in addition to the federal and state audit requirements, publishing a CAFR provides an overview of the district as a whole to our community. Each year, the CAFR is published on the district's website along with the annual budget and other financial reports for our community to review. The information in the CAFR also is evaluated, as Mr. Osich mentioned, by credit agencies, rating agencies, each time the district does sell bonds. And our audit and comprehensive annual financial report can indeed affect our credit rating. In addition to the audited financial statements in the CAFR, factors affecting the district's financial condition and long-term planning can be found in the transmittal letter at the beginning of the report on pages 4 and 6, and a financial analysis of the district's funds, budgetary highlights, and economic factors affecting next year's budget can be found in the management discussion and analysis on pages 21 through 24. The Uniform System of Financial Records has been developed by the office of the Auditor General's Office and the Arizona Department of Education pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 15271. The USFR prescribes the minimal internal control policies and procedures to be used by an Arizona school district for accounting, procurement, financial reporting, budgeting, attendance reporting, and various other compliance requirements. These policies and procedures are are in conformity with generally accepted practices and federal and state laws. District staff stay abreast of USFR requirements and compliance best practices by attending conferences that are produced by professional associations, audit firms, and the Auditor General's Office, as well as Arizona Department of Education conferences and training. And at this time now, I will ask Mr. Michael Vaughn to join me to discuss the fiscal 2019 USFR Compliance Questionnaire findings in detail. Mr. Vaughn.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Superintendent Pallas Thompson, thank you for having me here tonight to walk you through the results of the district's fiscal year 2019 USFR compliance audit. Annually, as you've heard, the districts all around the state are required to contract with independent public accounting firms to have a USFR compliance audit as part of their annual financial audit. During the audit firms select samples and perform procedures over 20 broad categories of USFR requirements, ranging from cash controls to records management or attendance, to test the district's compliance in 247 specific areas of focus dictated by the Arizona Auditor General each year when the office publishes the USFR compliance questionnaire. Based on the responses documented in the USFR compliance questionnaire, the Auditor General's Office determines if a district is compliant, marginally compliant, or not compliant. As you can tell, auditors don't tend to like to give letter grades. The exact methodology for determining which level of compliance a district falls into is not published, but the Auditor General's Office considers the frequency and intensity of findings in the various areas of compliance. The district had 13 instances of noncompliance documented in the fiscal year 2019 USFR compliance audit, spread over 3 compliance questions, 2 related to cash controls, 9 related to property control, and 2 related to student attendance. Specifically, the cash finding related to 2 student activity deposits not occurring within 5 days of cash receipt. The property control finding related to 6 assets whose location did not agree with the capital asset listing, and 3 items that were on district property but were not on the capital asset listing maintained by the district. For attendance, attendance findings related to 2 withdrawals of enrolled students where the date on the withdrawal form did not match the date of withdrawal entered into the student information system. I would like to help put some of these findings into context for you, similar to how Mr. Osuch did. Other than for the capital asset findings, noncompliance was infrequent, 1 or 2 instances in the tested population. Attendance and timeliness of deposit findings are some of the most common USFR compliance findings in the audits across any district. When I was an external auditor, honestly, I was surprised if we ever did a USFR compliance audit and didn't give findings in those areas. However, district management takes USFR compliance very seriously, and we will work to address the findings of the audit. As Mrs. Myers pointed out, staff members have been attending continuing professional education through the Arizona Association of School Business Officials and specialized industry groups for procurement and attendance in other areas of compliance. Internal reviews are conducted to ensure compliance, and when we see noncompliance, we have a policy across the district and the department to say something and provide real-time training when we're able to. At this time, Mr. Osuch and Ms. Myers and I will be available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that, Mr. Vaughn.
Sure.
Ms. Springarelli?
I have no questions, but I just wanted to thank Ms. Myers and Mr. Vaughn and your entire team for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may also say thank you and acknowledge that we have several of our team members in the audience, and I'd like to thank the entire Business Services Department, including Linda Virgil, who is our Director of Accounting, and we're also joined this evening by Mr. Ben Ronquillo, who's our Director of Business Services and Procurement.
Do you want to have them stand up?
Yes, if you'd like to stand. Say thank you to both team members. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I just want to also say just thank you for your diligence and all the work that you do. I know we have award-winning financial management in our district, and appreciate that. I did notice, and I appreciate you recognizing that the areas where we had USFR non-compliance are kind of similar year over year, and that makes sense because it's a very large district and there's a lot of people and a lot of students. So I appreciate you addressing that. But otherwise, thank you so much for an outstanding job, as always.
Ms. A.R. Martinez?
Just to echo my governing board sentiment, I also want to add our frontline staff. It definitely takes a unified district in this space to make sure we're doing our due diligence and following ethical and legal practices. So thank you to the frontline who submit those reports.
Thank you for that. So when we take a look at some of the findings, we are always all about continuous improvement. And when you measure that number compared to the prior year, so kind of a year over year, is that's kind of average, that number, right? That we've realized, have it gotten better?
Mr. Sandoval, members of the governing board, we've been tracking in detail our USFR compliance questionnaire findings going back to 2013, and we've seen significant improvement in several areas. So we are very focused on ensuring if there is a change in an area. For instance, we've had an increase with the fixed asset findings. We are now focused on that as a priority, doing additional training. We have new staff. And again, as it's been mentioned this evening, it's truly a group effort district-wide because the business office is one component, but it's all of our secretaries, our bookstore managers, all of our schools working together, ensuring that they're aware of the requirements, and it's a partnership. And so we do thank the field as well. And when there are findings, we do work as a team, as a district, to address them.
Gotcha. No, thank you for that, and that's the trend that I've seen. But I definitely wanted to give the opportunity to kind of speak to that in more detail. And I don't disagree. There's a lot of individuals involved. As we take a look at this, as we say, look at finance, from our organization's perspective. But thank you and your team just for your diligence for sure. But just your commitment to ensuring that the district is always highly rated, not just from our academics and all of our programs, but, from a finance perspective as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along to budget team updates. And I think we have Ms. Myers again.
Yes, good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Superintendent Pallas Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our budget team's work to date. I am joined tonight by Mrs. Sandra Sashow, Director of Food and Nutrition, to assist me with the presentation, and she'll be joining me in just a few minutes, or she'll actually join me right now, better yet. Okay. On December 12th, 2019, the fiscal year 2021 budget process and timeline was shared with the governing board. Tonight, I will highlight aspects of the budget team's process and provide the listing of budget team members and scheduled meeting times. Mrs. Sashow will also provide a summary of the budget team's work to date. For a number of years, employee stakeholders have provided input for the annual budget process through what we have called a budget team, which has representation from our certified, classified, and administrative team members. A large population of team members have returned to serve on this year's budget team, as well as several new members. And I'd like to note that we do have a handful of our budget team members in the audience this evening, in addition to Mrs. Ashow. So if they would be willing to stand, please. I'd just like to acknowledge that they are with us this evening. So thank you for joining us. In all, 32 staff members will be serving on the budget team this year, and with that population, we do have their names and positions listed on the slide. Included in the population of team members are 15 certified employees, 8 classified, 6 administrative, and 3 non-voting members. In addition to the team members listed on the slide, we do need to also mention that Lori Alexander is returning. She's not listed on the slide, and she is our Copy Center Land Tech classified employee. So her addition makes 32. The budget team began meeting in late January. This year's budget team will continue to provide input on budget priorities for the fiscal year 2021 budget, including salary increases for employee groups, benefit renewals, retention stipends, professional growth recommendations, and performance pay amounts. Budget options for budget team consideration will be prioritized based on governing board priority input and administration's input, and will be based on the state budget funding levels and compensation study data that we have shared beginning with last year's budget team. District strategic plan initiatives and projects will also be a factor when prioritizing budget recommendations. The budget team will meet over a total of 3 months and provide regular updates to the governing board on the group's process. And when we provide those updates, we will actually invite a budget team member to be part of the update for you. Budget recommendations will be brought forward to the governing board in April. We also recall last year there was a request to ensure that when the recommendations are brought forward, that there would be the opportunity for 2 meetings for the actual recommendations and then a vote. And so we will ensure that we do that, and that there are 2 meetings to consider the recommendations for approval. At this time, I would like to invite Mrs. Ashow to present her update.
Thank you. The budget team has met 2 times this year, January 27th and February 10th. At the first meeting, there was a comprehensive presentation from Valley Schools and Christy Davis from the district's benefits department on the medical and dental insurance plans offered by the district, as well as the fiscal year 2021 budget team expectations and priorities were gathered from the team members. At the second meeting, Christy Davis presented medical and dental insurance renewal cost options. Information about the district's 13% M&O override was discussed, as well as priority comments were shared by Superintendent Pallas Thompson. In addition, district benefits renewal options and fiscal year 2021 retention stipends were considered and voted on by the budget team. The team's recommendations will be brought forward at a future governing board meeting for the governing board to consider and formally approve. The next budget team meeting is scheduled for February 24th.
Thank you both.
Yes, that concludes the presentation, and we're available to answer your questions.
Perfect. Ms. Underhill? Yeah. Ms. Pingrelli? Ms. Sayar Martinez, any questions?
None at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. I don't have any questions either. Thank you very much, both of you. All right, moving on to discussion and consideration of approval of contract language for administrative certified teachers, certified non-teaching professionals, and support staff for the 2020-2021 school year. Dr. Carter Davidson.
Good evening. Of all members of the board, Superintendent Pallas Thompson, community. Tonight, this agenda item is one that we bring back, and we do this annually. I provided all 4, or actually 3 contracts and 1 letter of reasonable assurance for our classified team members. Provided those for your review, and I just wanted to point out a few of the changes this year that we have in front of you, and they are very minor. Before I dig into that, I will start with our certificated contracts, either our teachers or our administrators, and it takes us back to a conversation we just had on policy GCQC and liquidated damages. What we know is the amount of money currently that we were to charge or assess for liquidated damages is $2,000 for administrators and $1,500 for certified staff. That language is actually found in the contract. So certainly wanted to ask our governing board if you anticipate, at least in its current format, any changes that you might see in the dollar amounts as part of those liquidated damages.
Yeah, I think, based on the prior conversation around GCQC, no one really, that wasn't a point of discussion, so I don't foresee that change, but Senator?
I was thinking about the language that Ms. Berg mentioned regarding the, proration for because we've got the whole school year in there. So if we might consider a semester, I don't know, for discussion.
Okay, and here's what I'll do just to honor the agenda item. Perhaps I will move forward this agenda item, and then if there are any changes in the future, we'll see that change accordingly. We'll make it real clean and easy.
Thank you.
So for our administrative one, please, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up over there for us. The items that you'll see that differ this year, other than dates, would be found towards the bottom of page 1. And just in working alongside legal counsel, we just wanted to highlight that a TIM member must be legally certified for the state of Arizona, but also to be able to work in the United States of America. Also, on the second page, towards the bottom, the paragraph that starts, if the employee is to be terminated. And if you recall, governing board members, there was conversation last year where we were allowing non-certificated administrators to have a legal right that was really honored by an Arizona revised statute for certificated members. We in Peoria do offer administrative contracts, the same contract to an administrator regardless of certification, but again, in working with legal counsel, it seemed that we were putting ourselves in jeopardy by having a particular comment there. So that comment, as its relationship to the revised statute, was removed, and that is where we have landed on the administrative contract. From the if we can move please to the certified contracts. We have two. We have a certificated contract we use for our classroom instructors. We also have one that is listed as a certificating non-teaching professional. You might see that as an academic coach, for example. Very minor changes in here. For this one as well as that one, again, the language that reads to be certified in the state of Arizona as well as to be able to serve in the United States of America. Those are the only two changes there. And for letters of reasonable assurance, the item that is different in here, and this information is found in our contracts for the certified staff, but in the LORAs, we brought over the contract language that allows for our employees to have access to items such as food in our staff meetings. You'll see that in a big highlighted paragraph, and that was not in the previous letter of reasonable assurance there.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we're just wondering about that one. Can you just explain that a little bit further?
So as you see here, it talks about de minimis value. And ultimately what we're saying is that our employees do have access to some of those things that might be seen as de minimis value, such as food in staff meetings. This is language that was here in our contracts and in our for a period of time, and I think it's just clarification. And if Ms. Myers wanted to speak to it, but certainly we have it here to allow us to use resources in a manner that you might not otherwise be able to do.
Dr. Davidson,
Go ahead, Ms.
if I
Myers.
may,
Thank you.
sir, de minimis value is actually a term that is used by the Internal Revenue Service, and it basically means nominal.
Yeah, thank you for that. When I first saw it, I was almost read as if we were determining whether or not we're going to feed our employees at a meeting. So I appreciate that.
It's certainly to keep us in compliance and demonstrate we aren't breaking the law.
Okay.
So Governing Board, that's all I have for changes tonight, and with your support of this agenda item, we would move to issue contracts by March 13th, minus any significant changes to the policy we reviewed earlier tonight.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Any comment, Ms. Monroe? No? Ms. Sayre Martinez, any comment on the contracts?
I do. First of all, thank you, Dr. Davidson, for taking that extra time to speak to legal counsel. We did bring this up, and when we're looking at the district's position, we always want to consider being risk adverse. So I appreciate and acknowledge that effort that you spent doing that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question. specifically with non-certificated administrators, what types of positions in our districts fall under that type of contract?
Currently, Ms. Sejal Martinez, we issue just one administrative contract to all of our administrators, regardless of their certification. One could look at an example. I'll use myself. I am certificated through the state of Arizona as an administrator, but yet I am in a role that may not necessarily need a certificate. Does that make sense?
It does. And I bring that question up, and I appreciate the clarity, because when we start to move our programs around to administrators who may not or may have certificates, it brings the question of, and this is just top of mind because I heard it tonight, PSBN was under a certificated administrator. If we move it into an area where an administrator is not certificated, does that impact anything? Does that have any impact to it?
I would hate to speak out of turn. I don't know if that would be really relative to what we're speaking about, but I from what I've seen in 23 years, I don't believe that would put us at risk.
Okay. I just want us to be cognizant when we move and look forward in our future to moving programs around, or who can host them under what administrators, that is something we consider.
Very fair. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Ms. Sejal Martinez, I mean, that's a great question. When we're talking about that program, I guess it all becomes, defining that administrator's scope of work, right? Because we are talking about students. And so I think, outside looking in, the assumption is all, really individuals who are tied to, well, we're all here to enhance the student success, but, whether it be in the classroom or any type of programs, are the requirements that require a certificated individual to be a part of those types of programs or processes, if you will. That makes sense.
For me, Governing Board President Sandoval, that kind of speaks to stewardship of resources a little bit, right? Alignment of our resources program to the job description, perhaps, that those employees are in. So, I mean, it certainly is part of our whole strategic plan and how we operate.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sejal Martinez, for that question. Any other questions, Board? I don't have any either. I just need a motion to approve the contract language for administrative certified teachers, certified non-teaching professionals, and support staff for the 2020-2021 school year. Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, I should have asked this before, but if we approve it and there's a change to the liquidated damages figure or language, that would be evident in the, we can still approve tonight and that would be made. Okay, got it, sorry. All right, did you move?
I need a motion to approve that too.
Then I will move that we approve the contract language for administrative certificated and certificated non-teaching professionals and support staff for the 2020-2021 school year.
We have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself.
President Sandoval, I vote aye.
Thank you. And it passes 4 and 1 not present. Thank you, Dr. D.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to informational reports. These are also on our website, 11.1, Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report.
That's all you can do. Okay.
Report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Aries, any further commentary on the events calendar or meetings calendar? No? Board members? Anything that you don't see on there? Okay, perfect. Okay, going down to legislative, state, and local updates.
Thank you, President.
Ms. Myers,
Thank
thank you.
President Sandoval, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson, we are about to end week 5 of the legislative session. The governor, Senate, and House budgets have already been released, and staff from the governor's office and the legislature are meeting, and it has been reported that their meetings are approximately 3 weeks ahead of schedule from prior years. At this point in the session, 1,620 bills have been introduced, of which 879 are House bills and 741 are Senate bills. 1,030 are sponsored by a Republican and 590 are sponsored by a Democrat. The biggest topics of interest for this session remain education funding, water, and infrastructure. We will continue to update you on important bills, especially bills that affect education in the Peoria Unified School District as the session continues to move through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Linda Pallas, anything in addition to that or on that?
Good. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, moving on to other business. Board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. So.
And this is where,
I would
Mr.
like.
Sandoval, yes, I'd like you to be able to, you have about, I don't know how many minutes we said.
Okay.
3 times 4, 12, about 12 minutes left. And you have.
For public comment?
Right.
Yeah, so I would like to bring back, our public comment agenda line item to allow for these individuals to speak. Okay?
I second that.
Board members, you okay with that? Okay, perfect. All right. First up, we have Crystal Bond.
Hello, Mr. President Sandoval, board members, and Superintendent Pallas Thompson. I would just like to say that I'm a student at Centennial High School. I'm also an athlete, and I am sophomore class president. And I would just like to say that I have worked hand in hand with Dr. Sorensen all my freshman year and part of my sophomore year. And I have never met someone so passionate about our school, passionate about his staff, passionate about everybody that walked across that campus. And he made everybody feel like they had a purpose. When someone got in trouble, he wasn't looking at, oh, they got in trouble. He was looking at why. Why did they act like this? Why? What's wrong? How can I help them? And just like another speaker had said, I sent an email to multiple board members, and I got no reply from one, and I got a very scripted reply from another, which other peers had sent emails and got the same reply as me, which didn't get any of my concerns or worry about any of my concerns about any of the things I'd asked of. Dr. Sorensen is an administrator that I've never had anybody like it before. I've never had someone stand by the gates every morning greeting students, knowing their names, being at sporting events, just cheering us on, knowing what Coyote Pride actually means. And I've never once walked by him without him greeting me with a smile and asking me how my day was. And that's how I think any of our administrators should be. And I think that I'm a kid. I shouldn't be worried about this stuff. I spend 8 hours a day at school, and I spend multiple days at practice. I should not be worried about what the higher ups are making decisions for my education, because you should have that already figured out. But here I am standing here worried about my education because people can't get it together, and you are letting go of an amazing principal, amazing employee, someone that really cares, someone that cares about his students, his employees, everything. And I think it's ridiculous because he has changed the whole environment at Centennial High School. Ever since I walked on campus that first day, he's pushed me. I was a scared little freshman, and I didn't want to do anything, and he pushed me. I've talked to him multiple times. When he's busy, he made time. He cares about us, and I think it's ridiculous what he's going through. You're ruining a man's reputation, and that doesn't deserve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Next up is Mr. Ken Booker.
So, good evening, President Sandoval and governing members, Superintendent Pallas Thompson. I've scripted this out so I'll stay on track. So first off, let me start off by saying that I appreciate the work that you all do. However, it would be an understatement if I were to tell you that I am deeply disturbed by how the issue surrounding the suspension and subsequent resignation of Dr. Sorensen has been handled. I'm also deeply disappointed with the lack of communication from the school district and the board, as has been previously addressed. We as community members cast our ballots to elect individuals that we believe will represent us, passionately speak on our behalf, to be our voice, which gives us voice. As a voting member of the community, I am here to act as a voice on Dr. Sorensen's behalf, to stand up and be accounted for by not remaining silent. Dr. Sorensen is the kind of leader who not only spoke of the importance of hearing from us as stakeholders, but demonstrated in action and deed how important the voices of the students and the parents who support those students are, or should I say were, since he's resigned, to the Centennial community. He has inspired many of our students, our children, to soar to higher heights and be the best that they can be. How is it that any of us can approve of what happened and not be angered by it? How is it that we can sit back and allow such a pillar to be torn down, fracturing the very foundation of our school with no explanation at all? In my humble opinion, it is a miscarriage of justice and how Dr. Sorensen was mistreated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Next up, we have Darcy Brady.
Thank you for giving us another opportunity to speak. I'm the mother of 2 kids in the Peoria School District, and I have to say, I am disgusted with what has taken place over the past 2 weeks. Forcing a man to compromise his principles in fear for his children is not only disgraceful, it's blackmail, and I don't think we should accept it. You should all be ashamed for letting it happen under your watch. I would encourage you to bring an outside counsel, do an outside investigation, and find out what's really happening here. It's not fair, it's unjust, and he deserves the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. Next up is Emily Benson.
As a student at Centennial High School, I have been overwhelmed with the love and pride that fills our community. While being a coyote and choosing to have coyote pride every day is an option I have as a student while I walk into school, I could assure you that my reasoning for having this starts with Dr. Sorensen and how he has affected Centennial High School. I have never met someone so dedicated to their job like Dr. Sorensen. Dr. Sorensen has brought a new definition to coyote pride. Dr. Sorensen has gone the extra mile to assure that every student and staff member is proud of being a coyote. From being a student athlete, from a student athlete perspective, I have been given nothing but meaningful support and time from Dr. Sorensen, whether it's in the classroom or on the track, so that I could grow not only as a person, but as a student and an athlete. If you were given the opportunity to walk onto our campus, you would see how both his big and small actions have affected students and staff that work at Centennial. The small things like greetings at the gate and one-on-one check-ins help students like me and staffs that work at our school feel important and have a purpose in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. I won't go through what I said earlier, but I do appreciate everyone's candor and courageous dialogue. I mean, clearly, we have an opportunity, certainly from a communicative perspective, and that is something that I assure you, will be worked on and focused on moving forward without question.
I would just like to thank you for coming, and thank you for putting up with the lack of communication, which was not our best moment. I would like to encourage our students, if you would, to get Mrs. Airy to get your numbers, and the adults too. But I'm looking at the students right now. As we start to move on to the next chapter, I really need your input. I work with some of you, the seniors especially. We have a council that we work with some of you. I'd like to have you talk to us and give us some input. So we will schedule that for next week, right after Valentine's Day.
The input isn't considered. With all due respect, the input is not considered.
I hear you. I hear you. I sometimes it is. Okay. I'd like to think that it is. In 30 years of we've taken some input. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it back over to you for the end of the meeting.
Moving on to agenda item 12.2, draft agenda for the February 27th, 2020 regular board meeting. Thank you for that. Governing board, any requests for items to be placed on a future governing board meeting?
I have two. One is to discuss the possibility of convening a committee to review the facility use study in conjunction with the Citizens Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
And the second is to review policy KDHR in regard to advertising in schools.
I'll second that one as well.
For clarification, that's what Mr. Borhauer brought up? Okay, thank you.
Good. Ms. A.R. Martinez, any requests for a future agenda item?
I have this one, and it just needs to be a board report. And I believe I asked for this in the past, but I'll just restate it. Ms. Myers in the past has provided the board with travel expenditures up until March of 2019. May we have a 2018-2019 full report with all the updates for last school year for travel requests, and one for present time where that date ended to present day so we can start to compare where we're at?
Yes, I'm seeing a yes.
Yes. I'll second that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Perfect. And I don't have any items this week, so I do need a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Adjournment at 8:08. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.